LSU women's basketball has been hit with a major roster shakeup, and the timing has sent fans into a frenzy. Kate Koval is officially leaving the LSU program, and almost immediately, questions began flying across social media. What happened? Why is she leaving? And did LSU's recent decision to bring in another highly talented international frontcourt player make the situation even more complicated?
Before we get into the full story, make sure you smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on all notifications so you never miss the latest breaking news, recruiting drama, roster moves, and major stories from women's college basketball. And I want to hear from you in the comments. What do you think about Kate Koval leaving LSU, and where do you think she should play next? Now, one thing needs to be made clear from the beginning. LSU officially stated that Kate Koval is leaving the program for personal reasons, and the full details behind that decision have not been publicly disclosed. The timing of her departure has naturally created speculation, especially because LSU had recently added Russian prospect Anna Minaeva. However, speculation should not be presented as fact. What we can discuss is the public timeline, the changing LSU roster, and why this became such a major. Kate Koval was an important part of LSU's frontcourt picture. At 6'5", she brought legitimate size, rebounding ability, and a physical presence around the basket. Big players with her kind of potential are valuable, especially in a conference as physical and demanding as the SEC. Koval was still developing, but that is exactly why her future was so intriguing. Young post players often take time to adjust to the speed and physicality of elite college basketball. The more experience they gain, the more comfortable they become reading defenses, protecting the rim, finishing through contact, and making decisions under pressure. That is why her departure became such a big talking point. LSU is not an ordinary program. Under Kim Mulkey, the Tigers operate with championship expectations every single season. The goal is never simply to have a good year. The goal is to compete with the best teams in the country and put LSU in position to make another deep NCAA tournament run. And to do that, Mulkey is constantly looking for ways to improve the roster. That is the reality of modern college basketball. The transfer portal has changed the sport. International recruiting has expanded the talent pool. Coaches are now constantly evaluating players from across the country and around the world. A roster that looks complete one week can change dramatically the next. Then came LSU's addition of Anna Minaeva. From a basketball perspective, the move made sense. Minaeva brought size and potential to a program that is always searching for talented players who can help the Tigers compete at the highest level. But this situation carried a deeper and more personal context. Kate Koval is from Ukraine, and public reporting surrounding the situation described how the ongoing war between Ukraine and Russia had personally affected her family. That made the arrival of a Russian player a much more sensitive situation than an ordinary roster move. According to public reporting, Kim Mulkey understood that recruiting Minaeva could be difficult for Koval and discussed the situation with her. And this is where the story becomes incredibly complicated. Kim Mulkey is the head coach of LSU. Her responsibility is to build the strongest possible basketball team. Coaches recruit talented players based on what they can bring to the program. Size, skill, experience, potential and roster needs all matter. At the same time, basketball players are human beings. They do not simply walk into the locker room and forget about their families, their experiences, or the events affecting their lives. For Koval, the situation involved a deeply personal connection to a conflict affecting her homeland. That is why this story became much bigger than a normal discussion about playing time or roster depth. However, it is also important not to turn this into a story blaming Anna Minaeva. She is a young basketball player pursuing an opportunity to play at LSU. The public information available does not establish that she personally caused Koval to leave. That distinction matters. The situation should not be reduced to one player versus another. Instead, it highlights how complicated sports can become when real-world events enter the lives of athletes. Eventually, LSU made the official announcement that Koval was leaving for personal reasons. Kim Mulkey publicly supported her decision. And while fans may want a more detailed explanation, the reality is that not every personal decision has to be explained publicly. Social media immediately began debating the situation. Some fans questioned LSU's decision to recruit Minaeva. Others defended Mulkey, arguing that a coach should be able to recruit talented players regardless of nationality. And others pointed out that the emotional circumstances surrounding Koval's family made this situation completely different from an ordinary basketball decision.
There is probably no answer that would make everyone happy. That is what makes this story so fascinating. Mulkey had a responsibility to build her basketball roster. Koval had to make a decision about what was best for her personally. And ultimately, those decisions changed the future of LSU's frontcourt. From a basketball perspective, LSU now has a major adjustment to make. Losing Koval means losing valuable size and depth. Even if the Tigers have other talented players, depth is critical during a long season. Injuries happen. Foul trouble happens. Difficult matchups happen. A championship-caliber team needs multiple players capable of stepping into important roles. Now, LSU will have to figure out who takes on those responsibilities. Will another returning player receive more minutes? Will Minaeva immediately become a major part of the rotation? Will the Tigers make additional roster moves? Those questions will become even more important as the season approaches. And then there is the future of Kate Koval. Her departure from LSU does not change the fact that she is a talented player with size and potential. At 6'5", she has physical tools that many programs would love to add to their frontcourt. If she chooses to continue her college basketball career elsewhere, her next destination could become one of the biggest stories of the offseason. A new program could offer a completely fresh start. A new system. A new coaching staff. A new role. And possibly a new opportunity to become an even bigger part of a team. That is why this story should not necessarily be viewed as an ending. Sometimes a difficult departure becomes the beginning of a completely different opportunity. Koval's next move could define the next chapter of her basketball career. Meanwhile, LSU will continue moving forward. That is what elite programs do. Players leave. New players arrive. Roles change. And the coaching staff adjusts. Kim Mulkey has built her career around finding talent and building teams capable of competing for championships. Losing Koval creates a challenge, but it does not change LSU's ambitions. The Tigers will still enter the season with major expectations. But the frontcourt will now look different. And that is what fans will be watching. How quickly can the new pieces develop chemistry? Who steps up to replace the production and potential Koval brought to the roster? How will Minaeva adjust to the demands of college basketball? And can LSU continue its pursuit of another championship despite another major roster change? Those questions will only be answered once the basketball starts. But this situation also reveals something bigger about the modern world of college sports. Rosters are no longer permanent. A player can arrive through recruiting. Another can enter the transfer portal. A new international prospect can become available. A personal decision can change an entire team's plans. Everything can change in a matter of days. For coaches, that creates constant pressure. For players, it creates constant competition. And for fans, it creates non-stop drama. But behind every roster move is a real person. Sometimes fans forget that. They see a headline that says a player has left. They immediately start looking at the depth chart. Who replaces her? Who gets more minutes? Is another recruit coming? But there is always more behind the scenes than fans can see. That is especially true in the Kate Koval situation. The public knows that she is leaving LSU for personal reasons. The public knows that LSU recently added Anna Minaeva. The public understands the broader context involving Ukraine and Russia. But the complete details of Koval's personal decision remain private. And until she chooses to say more, that privacy should be respected. For now, the story moves into its next chapter. Kate Koval's future is unknown. LSU's new frontcourt is taking shape. Anna Minaeva begins her journey with one of the biggest programs in women's college basketball. And Kim Mulkey faces another challenge in building a roster capable of competing for championships. One thing is certain, the basketball world will be watching. Where will Kate Koval go next? Will she find a new program and become an even bigger star? Can LSU replace what it lost? And how will this roster look when the season finally begins? Those questions are still unanswered. But that is exactly what makes this story so interesting. Kate Koval leaving LSU may feel like the end of one chapter, but it could be the beginning of something much bigger. Her career is still ahead of her. Her next move could be massive. And whatever happens next, fans will be paying attention. So now I want to hear from you. What do you think about Kate Koval leaving LSU? Where should she play next? And how do you think LSU will adjust without her? Drop your thoughts in the comments below.
And if you enjoyed this story, make sure you smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on all notifications for more breaking news, recruiting updates, roster drama, and the biggest stories in women's college basketball. Because the LSU roster is changing, Kate Koval's next move could be huge, and this story may be far from over. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.